Hi everybody, my name is Angela with Widow on a Budget, and I'm sorry about my hair. I wanted to tell you my story of how I became a widow. You're going to have to forgive me. I wrote it down and it is rather long, just to give you a history of me and David. But I wrote it down so that I can glance at it, keep my train of thought, and hopefully not cry on you. Because every day it's hard not to cry. So, how I became a widow. For now, just for a short bit, let me reminisce. So, in July of 1988, my life looked really bleak. I placed my first child, not my husband's, up for adoption. And no, I was not married. It was horrible. It was sad. I knew that I didn't want to be linked to the dad for all of my son's life. I prayed over him the whole time I carried him in my womb. I left Terry, his father, as soon as I found out I was pregnant. I also knew that I couldn't raise Jonathan Tyler myself. Yes, that was my birth name I gave him, or the birth name I gave him, even though his adopted parents did change it. In 8.5 months after giving birth, and still in mourning, my best friend from school, with my best friend from school's help, I met my husband, David. We met on April Fool's Day that year. Within a week, I knew I was going to marry him. He was amazing. He was absolutely amazing. By July of that same year, we were engaged, and we started premarital counseling at his church. Our counselor asked why I love David so much, and I told him because he treats me like I'm so special. During our first few years of marriage, 3 years to be exact, we had 2 babies and had bought a home. We did not do traditional bank loan. We did owner finance. It was a short note. And it was hard sometimes to make that payment. But in 10 years, we paid our house off. We had made a promise never to give up, to always work hard, including on our marriage, and that we did. We didn't have much, but we were happy. As my youngest brother always said, Angela is fragile. David never had an unkind word to say. He led the home and made most of the decisions. In August of 2017, as empty nesters, we decided to move an hour away, but David continued the commute to work. It was about an hour and 30 minutes the way he drove. He said it was his time to just chill. Okay, so I'm going to give you a crash course on who I'd already lost in my short life of 47 years old. When I say birth or adopted, it's because I was removed from my birth mother's care and later adopted. When I say her care, we were removed from her care, me and my birth sister, we were removed from her care because she abandoned us, and I was in bad shape. Hence, my adopted family always said I was fragile, and fragile I was. I was fragile physically and emotionally for a very, very, very long time. It followed me into my adulthood. In 1982, I lost a good friend because she got hit by a car trying to cross over a highway and not going down to the street, but actually running across the highway. In 1988, I lost an aunt and an uncle by birth to suicide. I was pregnant with my birth son at this time. In 2006, I lost a cousin by adoption to suicide. 2007, I lost her dad, my uncle, to a heart attack. 2008, I lost her mom, my aunt, to suicide. 2009, I lost my oldest brother to suicide. 2013, I lost my adopted mom to COPD. 2016, I lost my adopted dad to cancer. 2017, I lost my brother-in-law to pulmonary fibrosis. This brother-in-law was my husband's brother. And at that memorial service, his two daughters were there talking to me, and they were in their late 20s. And I told them, I am so, so sorry. You are so, so young to lose your dad already. And I'm so, so sorry. That brings us to August of 2018. Back to my story. David, my now late husband, and I went to our doctors for physicals. Mine was normal, but it came up to David to hop up on the table. David said, "You know, Doc, I cannot breathe. It's really, really, really hard to breathe." She listened to him and sent him to x-ray. The next day, I look on medical app, and the radiologist had said that he had pulmonary fibrosis. I then started Googling things and found out that pulmonary fibrosis is a 30-year disease. You don't cause it. There's nothing that a person does that causes it. It's usually by chemicals, and by the time you get diagnosed, it's 3 years till your death. There's nothing they can do for you besides maybe a lung transplant, but that usually does not happen. Later that day, the doc made an appointment for him to see the pulmonologist. A week later, David was on oxygen. The next month, in September, my birth son died to complications to type 1 diabetes. It runs in my family, my birth family. Type 1 does. December of 2018, my younger brother committed suicide. This is the brother that said I was fragile all the time. When my my adopted mother was dying, Kenny, my stepfather, was upset with me. He thought that I had somehow used my computer, my laptop, to get into his computer, and I didn't. I had brought my laptop, but I actually had not even looked at it. And my adopted father came yelling at me, and my brother told him to stop it, that I was fragile. And a couple of days later, we lost my mom. Anyway, so David was in and out of the hospitals. He was out of rehabs for physical therapy and ended up having to have a pacemaker put in because he had the chemo drugs. They were giving him what was racing in his heart. They told me that they didn't even know that David would, if he would survive or not. But he did. In June of 2019, so he was diagnosed in June of 2019. No, he was diagnosed in August of 2018. So now we're June of 2019, not even a year. They told us both that it couldn't get any worse, meaning it was that bad. It was so bad, it can't get any worse. His lower lobes were falling off. Looking at the x-rays, it was scary. They sent David to a teaching hospital to see about a double lung transplant, but he was already dying. They could see it in his pupils. And I'm not sure how, but when they came in and told us that, I remember just bawling. And then I was taken away from my husband to a closet. Me and my youngest son and my birth sister and another birth sister, kinda long story, won't go into it, was all in that closet with the lady. I guess she was somebody that told us what the next steps was. She handed me a pack of papers and said, this is where the places are that we can take him to die, or, hospice places, or he can be at hospice at your house. However, at this stage of the ball game, I was maybe 155. And my husband, because of all the steroids he had been on and everything, he was more than 300 pounds. And he was passing out all the time. If he would stand up, he'd pass out because his blood pressure would get so low. And so I was afraid to take him home. And I didn't know if he was already dying. I didn't know what this would look like. We're talking about a 2-hour or more drive to get back home. So I really didn't think that was something that could happen. So I made the decision to put him in a hospice that was in the town that we raised our kids in, that first house that we had. And that night, everybody was there. His dad was there. I remember him saying, now, David, your brother taught you how to do this, and so you know how to do it. And I thought that was weird, but it's okay. I mean, Granddad only meant good things. All of David's family was there, and our 2 sons and their wives were there. And my sister was there. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do to help David. He was dying. He was out of it. They were giving him morphine because of the pain and stuff. So he was out, like out. And he was having what's called the death rattle. And that's where the phlegm is just coming out of his mouth, and they're having to suction him and suction him and suction him. And the next morning, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning. My sister is nowhere to be found, and Austin came in, and the doctor came in and kind of talked to us and everything, and then he left, and then I said, David, the kids and we're going to be okay. I promise we're going to be okay. He immediately took his last breath. That was July the 9th of 2019. That started the pain and agony that I still suffer. I don't think that I will ever get used to it. It's not as bad now as it was, but I will always be a widow. And not a night goes by that I do not say, I miss you, David. I will always love you, David. The other day was our 36th day, the day we met anniversary, April Fool's Day. It was 36 years. We were married a very short 30 years. I had always, our whole entire marriage, I sat in his lap and told him that we will be married for 60 years. It was always my goal first to make it through the first 27 years or to make it to 30, because my parents are married for 27 years, and I just knew that when we got married, that if I could just make it to 27, So then we made it to 30, or almost 30, and I told him we're going to be together for 60, and then he got sick. I am still in love with my husband, and I miss him greatly. Now we are Lolly and Pops and have a sweet, sweet grandson. And I know that David smiles down on him all the time. But I'm always going to be a widow. Even if I choose one day to get married again, and that I can't even imagine, I will always miss my husband, and I will always be his wife, and I will always be a widow. And I just ask for you to really, really pray, if you're a believer, for any widow or widower, because that's tough. It is a tough road. The reason why my aunt, the uncle that committed, the uncle that had the heart attack, and then the aunt committed suicide. She committed suicide because she could not stand living here on this earth without her husband. She couldn't stand it. She couldn't take it. But even though at first suicide was always on my mind, I would not allow that to happen, because There have been so many suicides in my birth family and my adopted family. And I'm not going to be a statistic. And I'm not going to do that to my kids. I feel like suicide is an easy way out. And it leaves destruction everywhere you turn. I miss my aunt and uncle that were by birth. I didn't really get to know them, and I miss and I feel robbed that I didn't get to know them. And my brother Keith that committed suicide, he had a really good reason. He was sick, and it was terminal. And he jumped off the tallest bridge in the area, which was a major bridge. And he jumped off, and luckily he didn't hit a car, because how tragic that would be. And then my brother, that's my youngest brother, that was almost like my twin. These are my brothers by adoption. They are my adopted mom and father's two sons. My brother, my youngest brother, and I were 8 months apart. And when he committed suicide, it was devastating and still is devastating. It's devastating that I lost two brothers to suicide. And I know my youngest brother had kids. He had Kayla, Kason, and Easter Angel. Easter Angel went to be in heaven on Easter when she was born. And she came early, and there was no way that she could survive. Anyway, suicide's not an option. It's not for me. And I wish that it would never be an option for anybody. I wish that everybody knew that it doesn't have to be that bad. Like there's nothing that God won't see you through to the other side. And if you're not a believer, there's still got to be hope that you can find somewhere. My hope is in Jesus. But if you're not a believer, then your hope has to be somewhere that the pain will ease and it will all be okay. I have the belief that one day I'll see my husband and all my loved ones again. When David died, my kids were in their 20s, pretty much the same age as the nieces that I talked to and told them, I'm so sorry your dad died with you this young. I don't have much contact with my sons. I miss them dearly. I don't want them taking care of Mama. I don't want them to feel like they have to take care of me. I don't want that for them. When I buy things, I think, oh no, what if I die? My kids are going to have to go through my things. I don't want my kids to have to go through my things. I don't want them to have to sort what's important and what's not. I hope that they don't lose me anytime soon, because I just can't imagine my youngest son being without his mom and dad. So I hope that it's years and years down the road. But now I'm going to be 56 in August. I was 50 when I lost my husband. It's been 5 years. Has it been 5 years? It'll be 5 years in December. It'll be 5 years. So I was 50 when he passed away, and I'm fixing to be 56. But he passed away right before my 51st birthday and right before his 57th birthday. We had a birthday party for him before he was transferred to hospice. That ride to hospice was awful. He kept on looking at me. It hurt. It hurt him so bad. They could not give him enough oxygen. And they only had so much on the ambulance. And she was like, if you don't stop, like, I'm going to run out of oxygen. I won't have any more to give him. He's panicking. But I couldn't keep him from panicking. He felt like he was suffocating. He was. That's what pulmonary fibrosis is all about. You eventually suffocate. Anyway, just be good to those widows and widowers. Please be good to the person behind you or in front of you or around you, because you don't know what they're going through. People who see me at the grocery store or they see me here or there, they don't know what I've been through. They just don't know. And some days I feel like I'm going through HE double hockey sticks. But I told my husband that I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to be okay. Whether it's good or bad, I'm going to be okay. Anyway, thank you for hanging in there for this story. I appreciate it. It's been nearly 30 minutes since I started. I appreciate you hanging in there to the end. And please subscribe and come back for future videos. Thank you, and you have a blessed day.